Hello and welcome to the AI Summit London. My name is Max Smolaks, editor at AI Business, an online publication dedicated to artificial intelligence, and I'm pleased to welcome Daniel Sutton, who's an analyst specializing in media and entertainment at Omdia. Hello, Daniel.
Hello.
So, you're a specialist in media and entertainment, but sort of like looking at the device side. So, we talked a little bit before, and you explained that there are essentially two kinds of AI that are kind of prevalent today. One of them is very much customer-facing, like we see it in chatbots and personal assistants, but there's another type of AI that is hidden, baked deep inside the software and devices, and you don't know it's there, but it's already delivering kind of like value for you. So could you talk a little bit about the distinction between these two different types of AI?
Of course. So as you mentioned, we have the front-facing AIs, your Alexa, your Google Assistant, even to a lesser degree, poor Cortana. So these assistants are the ones that the consumers will be familiar with. The voice assistants which you speak to, you give a direct request. The discrete assistants are working in the background on a lot of devices. When we look particularly at the recent Apple presentations and we look at the iPhone 13, we saw a lot of work going on in the camera in particular. In fact, for a lot of consumers, this is the place where the AI is really going to be at work. So if you have seen the presentations, you would have seen Apple had lots of work where as a subject came into shot, the camera was automatically bringing them into focus. It showed where people were looking, when the subjects looked in a direction, the camera would move with it. This is a discrete AI coming into play and just working in the way to improve the user's photography. It's to allow someone like myself, who is never taken a photography lesson, to go to a photo gallery and to walk out and then start taking snaps and feeling like David Attenborough when really, as I say.
Absolutely. Night photography, like the transformation that has happened over the past probably couple of years, it's amazing. I can now literally point and shoot and it looks just the way it looks in real life.
Yeah. These enhancements, and they're not just taking place on the rear cameras, they're also taking place on the front-facing cameras as well. When you take a selfie, if you're using portrait mode, and sometimes it's an AI which is focusing, putting you as the subject and blurring out the background. Microsoft did something very exciting with their Surface Pro X, where the front-facing camera was able to realign the line of sight for the user, so that the person on the other side always felt like the user was making eye contact with them. And these were just minute adjustments to the image that the AI was making in the background to just improve the user experience. And when we move away from the cameras, we also have real-world sort of usage enhancements. We have AIs being baked into the chipsets, which are looking at the way that the user is using their system and beginning to think about, well, what are they likely to do next, and to clear memory and prepare the system because in anticipation for where the AI has recognized the user is likely to be going.
Okay, again, as a PC enthusiast, that sounds wonderful and brilliant. Would you say that this kind of discrete AI is less controversial, less risky than some of the kind of, like flagship use cases? Or would you say that there's still inherent risk to building these systems?
There is still an inherent risk. At the end of the day, these AIs are gathering information all the time, just as with concerns with privacy that people have around systems like Alexa. These AIs are also always gathering data as well. And in many cases, these AIs are sharing telemetry in the same way as part of their enhancements. Now, obviously, the likes of Google and Apple have made commitments to reduce the impact, the amount of information shared. Mm-hmm. But obviously, yes, it is still a concern that users should be, wary is a strong word, but aware that these AIs are in the background, they are gathering information. And to remember that is just as much as an element as when you're saying, calling out Alexa.
And would you agree that sort of like through discrete AI, these systems have already arrived, they're everywhere, but we haven't realized it. Like we don't believe that we live in age of AI. We think the age of AI is coming, but it's actually, it came in like stealthily, like almost without anybody realizing it. So would you agree with this?
100%. When you look at systems, everything from traffic management to, as I say, the photography systems in smartphones, AI is almost becoming ubiquitous. Now, we're a long way off the Arnold Schwarzenegger apocalyptic, fully sentient AI. In many ways, what we have is a virtual intelligence. It's a system which is able to imitate and not fully, maybe not what we would fully call an actual artificial intelligence. But whether you want to call it, pick threads and call it an AI or a VI, they are everywhere. Systems like CityMapper, which are able to, when you put in a location, they take in information regarding the status of the lines and adjust around it. That is an AI in practice, which is looking at the route that you want to take, taking in new information and adjusting accordingly. So these AIs are very much part of life. Even such a simple thing such as text message recommendations.
Yes.
When you're doing an auto reply, that's an AI which has come in and said, "This is what what we think you should say next."
Yeah. Sometimes with very humorous results.
They can be humorous. They can also be incredibly accurate. I will confess, and my wife will kill me, but I very frequently use the auto reply. She never notices. So sometimes they can be very accurate. They can really learn your style by looking at the responses that when you do use an automatic response, looking at the responses you are likely to you use the most often. They are likely to pick the ones that you're likely to actually select. So they're learning from what you do. They're learning from how you interact with them. And they're improving your experience without you even realizing that they're really there.
Well, yeah. That sounds magical. And in terms of devices and device design, are there any capabilities that you see on the horizon and you look at them and just like, well, that's going to be interesting. That's going to change everything again. Is there any sort of like innovation on the hardware, software side that we haven't seen yet, that perhaps hasn't seen its time in the sun yet?
No, I can't think of any that we haven't seen yet. But actually, the one I mentioned earlier, which was the processors learning about memory management and usage, I think that is one that's going to be increasingly important, particularly as we have an increased number of ARM-based processors which, while incredibly powerful, do sometimes lack the brute force. These low-powered processors, as these neural engines are added to them, it allows them to more efficiently utilize the smaller processing capability, which some of them have. And I think as we go into more of a mobile-first market, adding that learning capability for better memory management will help to increase the experience, enhance the user experience.
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe even spare some battery capacity, which would be a win for everyone.
Exactly. This is all of these are around making the device work better, and if an AI can learn that you don't use your phone between 9 and 11 really, then that AI can learn to power down some features which you may not be looking at.
Yeah, and again, that sounds brilliant. Well, thank you, Daniel. This has been insightful, and good luck at the show. Daniel
Thank you very
Sutton,
much.
analyst at Omdia.
Thank you.